We'll help you out.
I did not. Folks, why don't we go ahead and get started? If folks wander in a little bit later, that'll be fine. I got a lavalier today because yesterday I had a hard time controlling the microphone so that everyone could hear and so that it could be heard with good quality as it went out over our live streaming. So I'm David Buttery. I'm the city manager with the City of Woodland Park. And before I begin my portion of the presentation, I'd like to introduce Dave Turley, our mayor.
Well, obviously, we'd all prefer to be somewhere else today. David's going to give an update on what the city's doing as far as operations, give an update on the status of the fire. I'm sure some of you have probably heard me talking on television things a lot more than I would like to. I want to just say a couple of words about the decision-making process that we're using. This is truly a team effort. It starts with us here relative to the city, David and myself, Chief Larson, and our city employees who I think are doing an outstanding job. And you see how well the evacuation went. Unfortunately, we had to do it. But we're working very closely with the Teller County Sheriff, Mike Insminger. He's actually, for Teller County, the incident commander. And he's tied in very closely with the Type 1 incident command team down in Colorado Springs. So when you see them on television, for example, at the 8 o'clock update in the morning, the 4 o'clock update in the afternoon, our folks have been down there. We have, from the county, we have individuals who, these microphones do drive you crazy sometimes. We have folks that are down there for briefings that actually start much earlier than that. They're down there at 6 in the morning and getting updates on things. And then, so then there's the broadcast that goes on television. But we get together out at the Sheriff's Department out in Divide at 9 a.m. and we do a briefing that the Sheriff does for people that are his staff and the sheriffs that are out on patrol. And your leadership team here that I just mentioned, we're out there and a part of that. We then kind of go off and have a separate little meeting with just David, myself, Sheriff Insminger, a couple of other folks, Chief Lambert from Northeast Teller County Fire. He's a part of that team. And we review what's going on, and that's our standard thing. I want you all to know that if there's a lot of people out observing what's going on relative to Woodland Park. And if something was to change, we're going to know that right away. In other words, if all at once my little device over here started going off, I would be looking at it to see what's happening because we're on top of that continually. So that's kind of the decision process, how it works. David, I look at myself as the mayor. David is the operations man. He's got and is responsible for running the city of Woodland Park. But he and I have been pretty much joined at the hip, not totally, but pretty close since Saturday afternoon. When I came down to the police station on Sunday morning, my stuff was already, the things I needed to have from the house. My car was packed. And so I'm ready, I was prepared then to do what I need to do for you as citizens. I don't have to worry about other things. So that's kind of, the process of how we work. We get information, we work it together as a team, and make the decision that needs to be made. And I will say, and I'm sure you've heard it from David before, number one priority is life, protection of our citizens. And you saw what happened in Colorado Springs, and we're working real hard to make sure that does not happen to you, our citizens. Second is property. Third is the fire itself. But that's the way the priorities work. So normally you're working the fire when everything's okay. That's what that team is doing. And later, a little bit later on, if I need to say anything, for you all that didn't know, I did get a tour of the fire line yesterday. So if I need to, I can talk to that a little bit. But I'm going to turn it back to David and let him tell you what's going on, and then afterwards we can have some questions.
We absolutely will. Okay. Can you hear me still? This is just kind of uncomfortable. first of all, if you could, make sure your cell phones are on mute. That way we won't be interrupted by those nasty calls. I'll even check my own. Yep, we're good. Before we get started in some of the details, folks, there's still more space up here. If you want to come from the back and sit down, that's fine. There's some snacks in the back provided by Teller County. They've been inundated with good wishes from people, and they're sharing that bounty with us this morning. And you're welcome to take them whether you've been evacuated from your homes or not. I want to, first of all, offer my sincere appreciation to a couple of groups. The first group is our Teller County Sheriff's Department. They're our local incident command team, and the structure that they've put in place for sharing of information and responding to emergencies has been exceptional. Only perhaps exceeded by the command structure associated with the Type 1 Incident Command Team in Colorado Springs. They're out of the Great Basin, Utah area, and it truly has been a privilege to watch them work. I've had extremely little interaction with them, but I have some fire marshal experience and some emergency management experience, and they're doing an exceptional job. And that's the group of people, those firefighters, that are keeping us extremely safe here today. It's the Teller County Sheriff's Department team, coupled with the city team, that's keeping us safe within the city limits. They're keeping the fire away from us. We're making sure that if the fire gets away or somehow creeps down in here or creeps up here, you are protected. So sincere appreciation for their efforts. And as I said yesterday, this meeting was born of an employees briefing that I was doing for our employees, and it grew to this more of a public information session. This is not intended to replace the sheriff's 7 p.m. meeting that he holds every evening at Summit Elementary School. I collect information in the morning and the evening meetings and kind of put it all together into a ball that is helpful, I think, for the citizens of Woodland Park. Am I still not doing something right?
Maybe this was better.
Makeup. Larry, can you still hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, but not. I could be louder. How about if I just try to talk louder? Yes, ma'am. Well, then what's wrong with the equipment? Seriously, I mean, let me have that one. Test.
None of them's working.
Test. No. You know, it's pretty frustrating, isn't it? Test. Is that one working, Cindy?
Have they got the main unit turned off?
Okay. It's our elected officials who come to the rescue. Okay. Thank you.
This one's working now.
Once again, this is not intended to replace the 7 o'clock briefing that the Sheriff's Office does at Summit. They bring people up from the Incident Command Team and from all over. This is just a massaging of multiple sources of information that I think is beneficial for the city. Before we progress, we really do need to acknowledge in your own way, there are 346 families who aren't going home ever to their homes that they lost. You can thank the team that's up here, the Incident Command Team, and your Teller County structure. Right now we have no loss of structures in Woodland Park or Teller County, but we wanted to prevent that. So the decision was made to do the evacuation, and our hearts should go out to those folks who won't go home to those homes again. And we had one fatality associated with that too. We don't have any of those in Woodland Park or Teller County. We should be thankful for that. A little bit on the fire update. From what I've been able to glean from other resources is that on June 27th, yesterday, from the flight that they did last night, the infrared flight that they do every night to see what the perimeter is, there was only slight growth in the fire. I would suggest to you that it was on kind of what I would call the southwestern area. You know, I've talked about Wellington Gulch near the gravel pits, across from Bust, and Sand Gulch. Yesterday the fire moved up to the top of Sand Gulch. That's what was happening when we were in this meeting. Remember, some of you came in and there was the plume and we smelled the smoke. That was the fire going up to the top of Sand Gulch and partially making its way back down. So there was some progression there. There was some progression. Remember I showed you here, Rampart Reservoir, where it jumped across and landed here. There was a bit more progression here. There was a little bit more progression on this side. You heard that it went into the Air Force Academy, I think probably 10 acres or so. That was this component right here. But I'm sorry that I don't have the progression map to show you. It's just in a smaller scale, and I can't. You can look at it later if you like. Today, there's supposed to be a little bit warmer. There's going to be less cloud cover today, so that means the relative humidities are probably going to be a little bit lower. They're saying that as of the end of the day yesterday, the containment is somewhere between 10 and 15%. It was 5% a couple of days ago. It dropped below 5%, and now it's starting to creep upward. They don't declare an area contained until they're very, very sure that that strip is completely out. So it's a pretty high standard before they say a fire is contained. Talked about the incident command. One of the other things that they did yesterday was they placed a team of 70 firefighters up here. They call that a spike camp. And those folks are up here so that they don't have to take the time to commute to work. So they're here and they're able to respond. So they're up there right now fighting that fire. In this lower area here, we talked a little bit about the dozer lines that are being built. One of the other things that they're working on is that direct line where there's fire on the left and no fire on the right, and they're scratching the ground with that direct contact to make sure that the fire does not come across that. So that is great news, because that means they're able to get close enough to the fire to work that close to it, where earlier days they couldn't get anywhere near it, and they were having to fight it indirectly from the air or do other things away from the fire. But they're in direct contact with it now, which is good news for us. They expect today to be similar to yesterday. They're working on very specific areas, much of which is here and here, those areas that could have the greatest impact on us. So that's exciting news, and they've been doing that for days. This just isn't the first day. They've been doing that for days. Some other just points of information, and these are very random. Businesses in town are still open. In fact, I know of one, the Cellar Door, who's bringing in live musicians from Denver tonight. So they're in all this, we're trying to maintain business as usual, as I mentioned yesterday, but with a heightened sense of awareness of what's going on around us. So support your local businesses. There was a question that was asked about slash. If you are doing mitigation around your house and your property now and through the rest of the summer, Teller County has a slash mulch location in Divide that's going to be open the rest of the summer, and they announced yesterday that that's going to be a free service for the rest of the summer. So that's good news. Yeah, our thanks to the county for that. Go on their website to see what hours and days that they're open. I've driven through your neighborhoods. I mean, I look around the room and I see some of my neighbors that have been evacuated like I have been, and I've driven through those, as have all of our law enforcement and other agencies. Our neighborhoods still look very, very safe, and I hope that gives you a sense of security. From a community perspective, we're not going to have fireworks on the 4th and the 5th. But I can tell you that it is my intention to have the 4th of July celebration in the park, and it's my hope that we will have the symphony above the clouds. Let me tell you a little bit about that decision-making process. We will wait till Monday before we decide on the 4th of July celebration. If our city is safe and secure, it's time to bring us back together. It's time to bring us back together to celebrate our independence and celebrate the fact that we have come through this ordeal. Same thing with the 5th of July. The symphony has agreed to wait until Monday afternoon to make their decision on whether or not they're going to have the symphony. Of course, much of that's going to be dependent upon whether or not Highway 24 is open. So Monday afternoon, we'll know, but I can't think of any better way to bring this community back together than the 4th of July in the park and the 5th of July symphony above the clouds. So keep your fingers crossed. I actually meant to start out the presentation with kind of the bottom line up front. If the only reason you came today was to find out about the evacuation status, I'll tell you right now, the evacuation status is not changing for today. It has not been lifted. If you're in the mandatory evacuation area, you will continue to be in the mandatory evacuation area through the course of the day. If that's all you came to hear, you've heard it, and you can let somebody else sit in your chair. And we will continue these every day at 11:30 until that mandatory evacuation is lifted. I've got a very dedicated staff that will help me with lavaliers and microphones, and we will continue to do this because, as I said yesterday, they don't let me go up and fight the fire. What I get to do is make sure you know as much about what's going on as possible, so that's what we're committed to doing. So we will do these tomorrow, Sunday, Monday, as long as there's a mandatory evacuation within the city of Woodland Park. We'll meet here at 11:30. The school superintendent contacted me earlier today and said that on the school website there's some information on how parents can help their children with understanding what's going on with this emergency. I know our North Teller Build a Generation coordinator, Debbie Upton, also has some information. So go on the school's website and look for that information if you are in that situation. Let me answer a couple of questions that came over the internet. I've answered that one. Waste management. Waste management has said that as long, if people are in the standby evacuation area, they will continue to provide service. If you're in the mandatory evacuation area, they will not provide service. That's waste management. I've answered the question about the 4th of July and the 5th of July. There was a question about mail, and Mario, we've researched it, so I'll just give the question and provide the answer. For those that are in the mandatory evacuated area whose mail is being held in Divide right now, will that mail be delivered to them once the evacuation is lifted? Yes. When the evacuation is lifted, all your mail that's being collected at the post offices will be delivered to your boxes. The last question, and it's probably the one that resonates with most people. This person is an evacuee near Edlow Road, and she's wondering about the plan to lift the mandatory evacuation. Are there certain criteria? What do those look like, etc.? No, it's not as if we can have a checklist that says if this, then we let folks go back home. It's so dependent upon the weather, the firefighting ability, the resources that are on hand, and ultimately the concern for your safety. That's kind of the bottom line. The mayor said, it's first responder safety because they're the ones that are up there literally on the line. So we have to be very concerned about them. I have no control over that. The second is your safety. I've got a little bit of control over that. And then third is property security. Great control over that with our police department. Property safety, working with our Northeast Teller County Fire Protection District, they will help do their best to make sure your property is safe from fire. So there's no absolute checklist that I can give you that says when that mandatory evacuation will be lifted. Allow me just a brief second to review my notes.
David, while you're doing that, I got to say. And one thing I will add to this is, and David is right on in talking about there's not a checklist. You've got to really look at the whole situation, what the fire is doing, what the weather's doing to it. And, that fire came down Queens Canyon to Mountain Shadows so fast the other day. So all those decisions are going to be, we don't want to be in that situation. And those decisions are going to be based upon the conditions at the time and how they're changing. And we're staying on top of that to make sure as best we can that we don't get in those kind of situations. But I will go ahead and say what's being watched, as David indicated, is being really worked. Woodland Park up here and the fire line down here at Sand Gulch up on that ridge. As they get that stabilized, and it's actually been stabilizing, and as David said, the crews are there. But that's one of the key factors is what's going on in that area, what's going on in that area, and then up on Rampart Range Road, what's going on there. Keeping in mind that the distance between the closest residences in Woodland Park to this spot up on Rampart Range Road is a little less than 2 miles. That the distance from the boundary of Woodland Park down to the Sand Gulch area is just about 3 miles. And things can happen very rapidly, and that's what we're evaluating in conjunction with that leadership team that I mentioned. So I just wanted you to have a perspective. You're going to hear a lot of things on the news that things are improving, and they are improving. That's a good thing. And of course, as soon as you hear they're improving, you want to, well, how come I can't go to my house? And I wanted you to make sure you know these are the things that we're watching. And David also mentioned this area up here. That seems like a lot further away, but that one's being worked really hard too because it can go lots of different ways. So.
One of these, I've just got a few more points, then I have one announcement to make, and then we'll answer questions as we can. One of the things that we've learned through this process is terminology is key. You've heard the term standby and pre-evacuation. They're synonymous, but that was confusing to our citizens. For us, we automatically said that it's exactly the same. Dave used the term stable versus stabilizing. The forest firefighters don't use the term stable. They use the term contained. So don't misinterpret that stable means things are all okay. That's not yet true. There are some areas, however, that are contained. So if we use the term stable, it's not to say that we can all go home. We're not going to do that. It just seems that there are resources available. They're being utilized to their fullest extent, and we're not seeing a lot of growth. But stable doesn't mean we're out of the woods yet by any stretch. I failed to mention a couple of things. I talked about the weather being similar to today or to yesterday. We're still expecting some winds out of the southeast coming to the northwest, which means we have that kind of that chimney effect of bringing the smoke up the hill. But the winds are supposed to be between 5 and 10 miles an hour with gusts only to 15. So we may get a lot of smoke up here, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the fire is spreading here rapidly. Remember, we saw that experience yesterday. Lastly, the county's meeting, today's Friday, they'll have one tonight at 7 p.m., and they're looking to do their county briefing tomorrow at 4 p.m., so stay tuned for that information. So just one quick announcement. Okay, Bill Alsbach, our Public Works Director, has a quick update.
Thank you, David. I just got a call from the Fire Information Officer on fire activity update. The interior of the fire there, you can see an area, David's pointing to it, that hasn't burned out yet. They expect that could burn out today, and that could put up quite a bit of smoke and quite a bit of activity. We realize that it is at the interior of the fire and isn't a threat to us or the perimeter of the fire. But when that goes up, that could look pretty ominous. So we just want to give you a heads up that that activity may be going on today.
Thanks, Bill. That's good information. Okay, this is going to be an announcement about the Hayman fire, believe it or not.
Hi, I'm Georgia Hartsfield. My parents have lived in Woodland Park for over 10 years. I currently live in Pueblo, going to school there. I was watching the fire as it was happening Saturday, and I wanted to help out. And I remember 10 years ago during the Hayman fire, Tracy Bennett, Nancy Hartsfield, and Lorena Townsend created the Firefighters Fund. And through that fire, they were able to supply so many fire departments and houses with supplies they needed, like drinks, food, snacks, as well as at the end of it, with all the funds they had, basically they donated like $10,000 to several houses around Woodland Park area in Teller County. And we're doing it again this year. We are already collecting money. We were able to give $1,000 to the Green Mountain Falls firehouse and just for gas and supplies they need in order to go out here and fight the fire. Also, yesterday we were able to go to the Victor Firehouse, give them, 10 cases of water, 12 boxes of powder Gatorade, so many snacks, so many fresh fruits. And we're asking for your help right now because in order to continue these efforts, we need your help to donate. Right now you can go on www.ppcf.org. There's a little bit of way of getting there. You have to donate, go to Human Services, and then right now we're under the Waldo Canyon Firefighter Fund. And you can donate there. Also going on, it's a 10-year anniversary of the Hayman Fire, so we had these shirts made, and we weren't expecting another fire, obviously. So that's why I'm wearing this shirt. As you can see, it says Hayman Fire. It is not the same as this one, obviously, a different name. But if you can get these at any firehouse in Teller County. They're $20. All profits stay in the firehouse to help them get the snacks they need, get the fuel they need, get everything that they could possibly need in order to help fight this fire. So if you would like to help with that, that is how you're going to be able to do it. If you have any questions, please come see me or my stepmom, Nancy. She's kind of on the floor right now. You can't really see her. But just come see us. We'll answer any other questions you have about the Firefighter Fund. Again, we want to say thank you to all our firemen and our officials out there helping. And, we want to continue these efforts. So thank you for giving me a minute to talk about it.
And thanks for your efforts. So I don't have anything else to present. I don't see our fire chief in the room. If he comes in, we'll see if he has any additional information to share. So at this time, what questions can I, the mayor, or the fire, or our police chief answer for you? Yes, ma'am.
Are they set to review 24 openings still on Monday? Is that the thing?
I believe that's the case, but I've not seen anything official. What I can tell you is it is still closed. I'm sorry, you're absolutely right. Thank you. The question was, are they still going to review the opening of 24 on Monday? Dave, do you know?
That's the last word I had from CDOT. No.
We've not heard anything earlier about the opening of 24. One of the big concerns is that rocks have become displaced, and frankly, there's still a ton of people in that corridor protecting Green Mountain Falls, Chipeta Park, a ton of firefighters in the corridor, not a ton of citizens. Boy, see how misinformation occurs? I had no intent of that. But there's still a lot of our emergency responders patrolling that area to make sure that we stay very, very safe. Yes, Matt?
They did move the roadblock east of the Teller line. What should we take away from that? I mean, there are going to be a lot of people wondering, hey, they're moving it down the pass. Are they getting ready to open?
Tell me where you saw it and where it was and where it is now.
It wasn't the switch.
Correct?
Now it is just east of, right where the highway kind of.
Yeah, I think that's called Sundial, Glendale, that area. No, I don't think you should interpret anything into that. I do know that the manager of the Walmart was working very closely with Teller County to see what they might be able to do to get the store reopened. Part of that would have been relocating that barricade so that people get there. Whether or not they've been successful in making all that happen, I'm not sure, but I know those discussions were going to take place.
Management was at Walmart working on reopening right before I came next week.
That's what
It's just I have no official word yet from anyone that it's reopened. I just know they were trying to get those things discussed. Yes, ma'am.
Concerning the evacuees, and some of us are living in the woods, is there a time when decisions are made with the incident commander about letting people back into their homes? In other words, for us who don't have a television available, what time should we check?
The question was, is there a specific time each day that announcements are made about the status of the evacuees? Is that close enough? No. As soon as I can tell you that after every 9 o'clock briefing, we will know for sure. But they're not going to make the decision necessarily at the 9 o'clock briefing. If they make the decision in the afternoon or at 3 o'clock in the morning or whatever, that's when they'll make the decision. What we will do our best to get that word out through a myriad of means, which if you're truly living in the woods, you're not going to know that. But I would encourage you to keep coming to these meetings. Come to the county meeting if you can. There are shelters set up at Summit Elementary School and at Cripple Creek and Victor High School, so you don't need to live in the woods.
Unless you want to. Yeah.
That's fine. That's fine. Then the information may get to you a little slower. Yes, Costa.
David, about property security. Cones and strings with flags will not keep people out. Can you tell us some more as to what is happening in our neighborhoods?
The statement was cones and strings don't keep people out of neighborhoods that have been closed off. What are we doing for security? There are patrols through the day and the night with at least 3 agencies that I'm aware of, our own police department, Teller County Sheriff, and the U.S. Forest Service. They are watching what's going on. As I mentioned in some forum yesterday, I drove through yesterday afternoon and in about a 15-minute span had to show my ID card to about 2 different agencies and 7 different vehicles. So people are checking. That's what I can tell you, Costa. People are checking. Yes, ma'am.
I saw this meeting televised by chance yesterday, indicating 11:30 every day we'll meet here. Is this televised and available online?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we're streaming today. It was streamed yesterday, and we had 2 television stations come too. I wasn't aware that they were coming. The intent was, again, originally it was my employees briefing to make sure everybody knew what was going on so they could help us. Then once we learned of the evacuation, we pulled in people, and then yesterday it really expanded to include the crowd that you see today.
Is it tellercounty.org?
No, it's from the City of Woodland Park, city-woodlandpark.org, and there's a link that will get you to the live streaming. And there, as far as I know, there is no television coverage today. Yes, Suzanne.
They can go back later, anybody can go back later and watch it also, because it's a link, so tonight if someone wanted to watch it, it'll be available.
Yeah, it is being recorded, and so they can do that through a link on our website. And does that link take them to YouTube, or okay? So that's how that works. Yes, Matt.
Is every day's meetings going to be available?
Yes.
Yes, we're recording it, and so they're archived. Yes, sir.
This has to do with the verbiage used for the evacuation areas and pre-evacuation areas. We're right on the border. We talk about subdivisions and that sort of thing. I live in Hunts too. That probably doesn't mean anything to 95% of people here. Is there a way that there could be a defined map for evacuation areas that you can look up on the web and understand exactly where you're at? Because in our neighborhood, there's a lot of confusion of who was supposed to go and who wasn't.
The question had to do with clear delineation on a map of those areas that have been evacuated or in the standby area or have no status whatsoever. Yes, there's a map. We have one that we've kind of reduced to the City of Woodland Park section, but it gives the full description. Plus, we have some other information from the county. So if you'll stick around, we'll see if we can do some research to answer your question specifically. Ultimately, the Sheriff's Department drew the boundary with input from the city. But we'll try to answer your question afterwards if that's okay. And that map's on the Teller County website.
I did see it, but it was like 2 days later. During the evacuation, there was a lot of confusion on who would go and who could actually stay.
I'm sorry for that confusion. The information went out consistently to our enforcement agencies and those that were providing the information. So meet with us afterwards and we'll make sure that you understand what's going on. Yes, ma'am.
We're up here evacuated out of Cascade. You said that you did a flyover of the, you didn't do a flyover.
No, I actually was in a vehicle.
Oh, that's even better.
I drove along Rampart Range Road with our fire chief, and we actually came down one of those roads I'd never been on that came down into Cristola from up on Rampart Range Road, and then we went on down to Sand Creek area and Wellington Gulch down by Chipeta Park, and so that's the area I traveled yesterday.
So you didn't get as far down as Cascade. What I'm asking is there still any fire that's active that you can see from the road? We live on the south side of Cascade, and it's our understanding that nothing has jumped the road and that the danger of that is becoming less.
The question is, because she lives in Cascade, is wondering what's going on down in her area south of Cascade. And this map doesn't show it, but in fact, from down in the areas, you start through the curvy section of the pass, all the way up to near Wellington Gulch area, is now listed by them as the team as being contained. And that's an important word. There's still things going on because there's still, and we did not mention earlier, there's still a lot of activity going on up by Cave of the Winds. That's really, really rugged area, and they can't get any people in there to work it. And so there's a lot of aircraft. They were telling everybody there'll be a lot of aircraft activity going on down there.
So is that going to be part of the hang-up of 24 because Cave of the Winds is so close to 20? I mean, maybe part of 24 may be clear, but that particular part is still
Down on that end, and I will just give you an example. As I was sitting there yesterday with the fire chief, you know, down at Chipeta Park, that campground with the little pond lake down there, one of the Type 1 heavy helicopters was drawing water out of that. And to tell you how active it was, it's amazing to see it from an aircraft aviation point of view. He draws out, and the district commander was telling me this, they draw out 1,500 gallons of water in 17 seconds. And so he swoops in down the highway. It's the reason you can't have cars on the highway. He's swooping in with this big tube, almost dragging, drops down and puts that tube in the lake. All the prop wash is going on. Sucks that up in 17 seconds and is immediately swinging up across the highway towards Wellington Gulch with that thing still almost dragging. And then he's back up on Sand Hill, or Sand Gulch, up on that ridge dropping it, and he's doing one of those trips. I didn't time it, but it's fast. And so, you know, you just can't have people there. I was also there yesterday. One of the C-130s did a drop on that same area yesterday. And so even with the firefighters, when that 130 comes by and is dropping that slurry, they've got to make sure that there's nobody down there, because you wouldn't want that. So it is, you know, just a little bit. I didn't get out, you know, that was my first trip down there, and but I wanted to get first, you know, kind of a first-hand view of what was going on, and I feel privileged to have done that. But it's really amazing what's going on, and I really did that so I could convey that to you.
So that whole area is still pretty safe and contained, but very active as far as...
Correct. And again, on all of this, the concern is keeping that fire north of 24. And that means up here, once you started getting really nasty winds from a thunderstorm, you know, that was blowing this way, I mean, they do not want that fire to cross US 24. And they're going to be doing, if a spot fire comes across, they've got to be able to be on that in an instant. And cars in the way would not be a good thing.
Thank you.
Let me digress just for a second before I take your question. First, Larry McKnight in the back has information about Green Mountain Falls. Rob MacArthur, their public works director, has been sending out daily updates from Green Mountain Falls. So if you're like you and you want some information that's a little closer to home, Larry's in the back and is certainly willing to share that. Every day that I wake up when normal things are happening is a balancing act for the city of Woodland Park. We try to balance where our resources go to provide services for the community. Do we make a decision to build a rec center, or do we make a decision to do something else? Everything's a balancing act. And during that balancing act process, we are absolutely concerned about public safety. When we have an event like we're having now, I'm going to tell you that the balance falls towards public safety. We're trying to balance the impact that the evacuation has on citizens' daily lives. I'm telling you, I had to wear strange socks yesterday because I didn't get those packed into my evacuation suitcase. Clean underwear, but strange socks. But it's a balancing act, and we know we're impacting your lives. But you know what? We will defer to your safety over your convenience at the drop of a hat. And so if we are irritating you by what you think is inappropriate decision making, you can talk to me later. And we will talk about why we're doing what we're doing. Because it's not easy. It's not easy. We have no intent to cause people to have their lives inconvenienced. My son's getting married in a week and a day right up the road here. And so we're prepared to be very inconvenienced with a very upset bride. So we want to make sure, ultimately, that your public safety is taken care of. You had a question.
I'd like to know if you know anything more about Upper Rampart Range Road at the end of Lloyd Creek, Upper becomes El Paso County. What's going on there?
The question is do we know anything about where the Upper Rampart Range Road, Lloyd Creek, if you go to the water treatment plant and you turn right and you go up the hill and you hit that Rampart Range Road, what's going on? Just come take a look at the map when we're done. That area is right here. Here's the upper, where Lloyd Creek hits Upper Rampart Range Road. That distance is a couple of miles, maybe a mile and a half. I'd have to look at the scale. But the area that you're talking about is right here, and here's the fire. And you heard the mayor talk about some of the efforts that are taking place right here. But come take a little bit closer look at the map. It'll make you more comfortable. Yes, ma'am. All right, and Bill Alsbach was with the mayor and the fire chief yesterday when they went up to that area. So he's got good eyes-on experience, too. Yes, ma'am.
I feel very privileged to have attended the meetings at night in the county and even today getting information about that spot fire, which has been actually referred to as a breakout now because of the size, that it continues to grow. We are not hearing any of that on the news, and I'm wondering why there does not seem to be any emphasis in that area.
Well, I would disagree with you because at the 8 o'clock press briefing,
Question, David.
dang, the question is that she heard yesterday that this spot fire across Rampart Range Road had been referred to as a breakout. Completely different level of anxiety associated with the spot fire and a breakout. But it was talked about at the 8 o'clock briefing this morning, and what they said was that it's not contained, but they are doing the mop-up of that area. It's about 100 acres. It did grow a lot yesterday, but they've put a ton of resources. Remember I mentioned that spike camp? They have two primary focuses, here and here. So they are in the mop-up phases. Remember I told you that to be called contained is a very high standard. So they are covering it. Yes, sir.
I'm curious, is there any way to watch the county meetings, the summit meeting online tonight?
I'm not aware that they're broadcasting them. The question was, are they broadcasting the summit meetings? The answer was no. Yes, sir.
My question was for the Heyman Fire Group, and I forget your name, so I apologize, but if we want to make a contribution today, do you have a way to channel it to where it needs to go?
Yeah. We're actually,
Here you go.
Pay attention. So the question was answered with money, so you don't need to know the question. Yeah, a lot of money. That's great. Thank you very much for your generosity. Yes, Larry.
This is a terminology question. If you could help us manage expectations, and I'm not trying to pin you down to that checklist thing, but when we watched the briefing this morning with some GMF interest in mind, and they converted that line to a black containment line, that was like wildly encouraging, because my guess is they're pretty conservative. They don't say contained unless they mean contained. So how should we manage our encouragement as they begin to report that vertical line heading up from the highway, as some of that's going to start converting to containment, and just help us manage our interpretation of it.
The question was, how do we manage information as it relates to containment on information that you're getting. Well, first of all, you shouldn't be managing that information. But what your question was about encouragement. I understand it, and I know what you do, so encouragement's a big thing. I would just say, know this. There are tremendous, tremendous assets right here. There are tremendous assets up and down this 24 corridor. Remember I said at the beginning, they are doing what they call a direct fight, which means the side of their body that's closest to the fire is warm, the other side is cool. They're that close. So that's what your encouragement should be, is the resources that we need from the local to the federal level are there. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. I know you didn't want to talk about this, but I want to ask it anyway.
Thank you.
It's in regards to the federal emergency assistance. What is that going to mean for us? Is all of that assistance going to be directed towards the spring, where like the major catastrophe happened on Tuesday? I've been through a federal disaster before in the North Dakota flood, so I have some idea in terms of federal resources what that means. And I know a flood and fire are two different things, but for us, I mean, that meant the Coast Guard did like 62 rescue missions in contaminated water across cornfields. And we had Black Hawk helicopters dumping like 1-ton sandbags. And if the fire goes north, we might have a front row seat, but we don't have a very good view because of that ridge. What does that disaster assistance mean to us in terms of resources to fight that fire and prevent it from coming anywhere closer to us or farther north to protect? I mean, this watershed, this corridor, I mean, this area, I mean, we can't see. We can maybe hear some air traffic, towards the southeast, but we can't see any, National Guard protecting the evacuated areas up here. We can't see them dumping, slurry on the fire. We can't see anything. So what can you do the floods in North Dakota were unprecedented in, I think, 2009. And it forced our city managers to, look for ways to fight the floodwater that had never been tried before. And I mean, what can you assure us as far as that disaster assistance? What's going to happen? Are we going to get more resources up here to make sure? I mean, I'm looking at this distance. I mean, if you take this distance and here or here, is there anything being done to get more? I know you say we have a lot, but can we get more?
The question is the federal assistance. How do we get more? Are they recognizing that up here?
With the disaster declaration and the approval for federal emergency assistance, is that going to translate in more federal resources coming up here? And mostly I'm talking military.
Will the declaration of a disaster cause more resources to be brought up here? It's actually, it's going to be a short answer to your long question, but there's actually two different things that are going on. The disaster declaration provides for recovery resources. There are other systems in place that provide for operational resources that are happening right now. The growth of equipment and personnel has gone from literally dozens and hundreds on the first day to over 1,200 as of last night. That will continue to grow. As I was driving through the neighborhoods yesterday, I told you I came upon 3 different Forest Service divisions. So if you look at some of the maps, you see that there was Division A, B, C, and Z, Y, X. And now those divisions pretty much wrap around the entire fire. And so there were 3 divisions. 3 divisions. If there were only 8 or so in the whole area, we had reps from 3 divisions. I can tell you exactly where they were. They were in the Kings Crown area. So it was within about a half a mile that I came across 3 divisions. So the resources are here. Are more coming in? Yes.
Evacuated areas, the people who have had to leave our community, I think they would feel more comforted knowing, I mean, we like to see tanks and National Guard in those areas.
No.
We don't want our local law enforcement, our sheriffs, to be wasting their time driving around in evacuated areas.
Everybody, hold it down. Listen up. Please. Thank you.
I have
Well-
another question too that's unrelated.
Okay. If you're thinking of, so the question still continues to be about federal resources, particularly the military. We don't want a martial law environment. We don't need that. But well, hang on a second. You've asked the question. Let me have a chance to answer it. So the resources that they need, be they National Guard infantrymen or dozer operators from Fort Carson, which are up here helping to fight this, or Black Hawk helicopters, which are flying out of the Air Force Academy to help fight this. Those are being dedicated. But there's also a command and control structure that is in place that can handle only so much. And what we don't want is we don't want a lot of resources that are just loitering, that are waiting. All the resources that are up here are being used, and they're being efficiently used, and they're being effectively used. So we don't need, from what I understand, we don't need to add to that right now. They increased dramatically the amount of resources that have been moved up here. If you're looking for confidence, and I'm not able to give that to you, then I'll try again later.
I want to make sure our local law enforcement is able to do their job without having to worry about, policing.
We talk about that. We talk about that many times during the day with the chief of police, the deputy chief, our emergency manager. We're doing okay.
My other question is there a place that people can call, like elderly and disabled, who aren't within our city limits, who aren't able to get their slash off their property? Like,
The Coalition of the Upper South Platte was providing some assistance, but I don't know for sure whether or not they're going to be able to do that.
it could be people that aren't even able to come to these meetings. Is there a place that they can call and say, hey, because,
I'm not aware of one.
community, people, I have a chainsaw. I mean, I can work, I can help bring slash, but I don't know who needs the help. Is there a way that people who are willing to help them slash can find people that need the help?
The question is there a way for folks who can't handle slash to get some assistance with that? What's your phone number? We'll have them call you.
719.
No. We'll find out. I do not know what the answer to that is. The city doesn't have that resource on hand right now, but I understand the question.
I think a lot of people are sitting around waiting, and they don't know how to help. They don't know what to do, and it's anxiety producing. Like, we want to help, but we don't know what to do.
I understand. Yes, ma'am.
I'm an evacuee from Lower UCAS, and I'm very glad to be offered refuge here. We do need some sort of citizens one-point access point to find the updated information. We have called the police on a couple of occasions and been told it's no longer pre-evacuation, get out of town, and that was not the case from the police access.
From Woodland Park Police?
Right. We do need to find one. You told me you're sending it all over. Well, it's got lag times all over. We would like to know one place that sends out the information immediately. When you want me to evacuate again, I will go out. One place. Another thing is, we all want to contribute what we can on a citizen's basis. We don't even know what kind of signage to leave. I've walked on the neighborhoods and seen people are leaving the flower marks with the X and the zero, but that's great for the looters to find out. If we could be trained with a website that says, okay, put a big sign on the flat bottom of your deck in front of your front door, so when the policeman comes up, he says, oh, there's no pets, and he goes away without the looter being able to drive by and say, okay, that's a site to attack. So we need a citizens access point for what we can use.
citizens access point for what can be done from a voluntary energy perspective. Okay, we'll talk to the county to see what they can do. You know what I talked about balancing a little bit ago? The balancing of making sure that you're safe is more important than balancing the security of your home. We could have an interesting debate on that, but we're marking the houses with a code that talks about whether they've gone, whether they're staying, whether they weren't home, etc. And so is it an indicator to a looter? Yes. We think we have a program in place to keep the looters out. And what we're also, if people are on standby and they want to leave, we're asking them to put a note, like you said, not maybe on the door where somebody could see it, but at my house, you walk up to the door and you turn around and I've got a column that holds up my porch. That's where mine is. So the police can walk up, knock, 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 and turn around and say, oh, they're gone. Let's put a red stripe on this. So things like that. There really is no standard. I saw several different styles being used. Just if you leave and you're in the standby area or not in the standby area, you call our police department, 687-9262. I'd like for you to talk to our chief of police or deputy chief, and I'd like more information on what the bad information was, when it was received, and perhaps if you remember who from. So Deputy Chief Gomes is back there by the map, and our chief is underneath that picture right over there. Help your neighbors be ready to go. That's what's most useful for us. What other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Since we are a city that's half evacuated and half not, I think I speak for a lot of us here that we have an anxiety about something we forgot or a pet that's not accounted for. And we noticed earlier this week in Colorado Springs they had set up times of 20 minutes that you could sign up to go back to your house to check on things. Is there any consideration about doing that for us during times when, the mornings are clear, our evenings are clear? Is there any consideration about that?
The question is there any consideration given to allowing folks back in for specified periods of time to get things? Those systems are in place. I think I mentioned them yesterday, that if you live within the city of Woodland Park, you can call the non-emergency number at the police department, 687-9262, and ask for the availability of an officer to escort you in. So, and if you live in Teller County, you need to call a Teller County number, and I may have that here. But they're working the same kind of a program. We're not going to open the gates and let everybody in for 30 minutes and then hope they come out. We need to do it very deliberately. If you had to go in because you didn't have the good socks, they're not going to let you go in. If it's medicine or glasses or something like that, then we'll absolutely work with you.
And David, let me just add for Teller County, the phone number to get information regarding evacuations, this is with the Teller County Sheriff's Office, is 719-687-8812. 687-8812 for Teller County residents.
Yes, Myra. The statement was confirming that the decision for either relief of the mandatory evacuation or adding an evacuated area, are those done and announced at specific times? They are announced at specific times, but when it will first be announced whenever the information is released by the Teller County Sheriff, and that could be at any time. It is being constantly looked at. Now, is the sheriff considering it every single minute? No. He's also absorbing information so that he can make the best decision for your safety as possible. But no, the decision is not going to be necessarily released at those dedicated meeting times. Yeah, okay. Sure. It's going to come out in a whole bunch of ways. Nixle, reverse 911, gossip lines, the news media, our website, our Facebook page. You're going to hear it in many different ways. If someone like the young lady who was up here who was camping in the woods, that's going to be more difficult. Yes, sir.
I understand you to say that a removal of an evacuation would also be a reverse 911 call.
I don't know why it couldn't be.
I think it could be. My question is, will it be?
Well, on cell phones. Okay. John, I'm looking to you because I don't see Bob. The question is would relief from a mandatory evacuation also be on a reverse 911?
They don't do it, we can do it.
Yeah, so yes. We will use every resource possible. Yes, sir. No, thanks. I've seen your feet. Yes, ma'am.
Highway 67 is open clear out to Deckers and, is that still open?
The question is Highway 67 still open to Deckers? Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Well, going along with her rather lengthy question, I think probably some of the frustrations that she was trying to express, which is one that I had, especially directing it toward the military, was how long it took for the C-130s to get in the air. It appeared as though if they'd have gotten in the air a lot earlier, it would have prevented a lot of damage.
Yeah, the statement was if the C-130s had gotten into the air earlier, it would have prevented some damage.
Well, and also military assistance.
Military assistance, yeah.
That delay, and it's bureaucratic, and there's a lot of things that we don't know about it, which we don't understand.
Sure. Well, let me try to help you understand it, because I was the fire marshal at Fort Carson, and I dealt with the different authorities that released federal assets to local mutual aid agreements within this region, to include aviation assets. So, first of all, it is bureaucratic, but Fort Carson responded very quickly with what they could, and that's with the mutual aid agreement. And so they provided some people very quickly. They bumped it to the next level, and they've actually, I think, taken it to the next level. That does take time. But here's the truth of the matter, is that even if they had dedicated bulldozer resources and people on the ground and firefighters on the ground for those first couple of days, the fire was inaccessible. The only thing they were doing was fighting it with helicopters with drop buckets. Even the C-130s would not have, as I understand it, could not have assisted, because those planes don't actually put out the fire. They retard the fire growth. And so the way this thing was growing down in the ravines and the gulches and the hilltops, the C-130s, first of all, they wouldn't have wanted to fly in that terrain because it's extremely dangerous, and we're going to protect those frontline resources. And secondly, it would not have done any good. So it's real easy to kind of point the finger and say, why didn't we get that earlier? Had we gotten it earlier, it probably wouldn't have done any good.
See, these are kind of the frustrations that we don't hear, and we say, okay, we've got a military base setting, well, 4 military bases setting in the spring. With this kind of a threat, it would appear that we would have immediate help from them. And we don't hear how much of those resources are being given to us for the fighting of the fire at this point. Well, I haven't heard anyway. I mean, you don't hear it on TV or that type of communication.
Some of the frustration is the dedication of federal resources early enough. It is a process,
and I think that's where she was trying to go with this.
Sure.
How
Well,
much help we were going to get.
They were leaning forward, and they have to receive permission to get it. So it does take a little bit of time, but they're there now. Yes, ma'am.
First of all, David, thank you very much. I don't see you that often anymore.
Aren't you lucky?
Yeah. So glad
29, 29.
And they post some updates regularly on it. So that's all I have to say. So much of this, the city of Woodland Park can't do a lot about, neither can Teller County. Much of the actual decision making is made by the U.S. Forest Service. And you really can't do anything until they do what they have to do. And their safety, firefighters, life, live property.
Yeah, the comment is that the resource that we have are top notch, and it's a tough area. Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you. I spent the last 3 days up in Cripple Creek, beautiful vacation. I'm glad I had the opportunity. But there doesn't seem to be a lot of communication coming out of these towns up there. And those people, they change ships on a regular basis, and they're not passing on that information. I made that known to them, and unfortunately for me, I wasn't in a evacuation area. I was one street short, so I'm going back home to get my mom and dad's ashes, which I should have got the first time. So anyway, I think there needs to be at least communication.
Yeah, the Summit County or the Summit Elementary School meetings that are held nightly. This is Friday, so on Wednesday night, after the 7 o'clock briefing at Summit, the sheriff's team and I went to Cripple Creek Victor High School, and we visited with those folks till probably about 10:15 with the maps and all of that. We invited them to come to Summit last night, and I recognized many in the crowd from that. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Is there, did the mayor take any photographs of the fire?
He's got a few, but he's providing those to the Forest Service, and so we're not really at liberty to release those.
You know, there's a lot of anxiety because all we see is a ridge and with smoke coming over. If we had some sort of TV indication or photographs provided, we could maybe get rid of some of that anxiety.
The question is if we could provide some of the photos that have been taken up close, it might relieve some of the anxiety. I'm a mechanical engineer. I don't know how exactly refrigerators work, but I know they stay cold. I know that the firefighters up there are doing a good job. If you go to the Denver Post, they have some excellent aerial photos that are in the public domain. Yes, sir. Oh, yeah. Yes, sir. I mean, one of the photos, you could clearly see the north end of Rampart Range Road by Lloyd Gulch up at the top, all the way down to where the fire area is. You could see the east side of Woodland Park in the photo. They were phenomenal. Phenomenal. We will see if the pictures that the mayor took yesterday can also be released, but they were of apparatus and different things like that. They're not going to be of general areas that it might not give you a good perspective. But try the Denver Post website. And NC Web that Gene mentioned, INCI Web, W-E-B, and just go there, and it's incident 2929, but it's pretty easy to find if you don't have that number.
And if you Google, there's a zillion pictures out.
Yeah, and there's Facebook pictures that are being connected and the like. Yes, ma'am.
Well, for example, on the Springer fire, it was, I saw some pictures from the Divide Volunteer Fire Department, and it wasn't burning trees, and it was just about this high, so you felt really comfortable that, oh, yeah, they got a handle on it. So that's kind of what I'm thinking that we might.
Sure. Okay, we'll see if we can get some of those released. Yes, sir. Probably not, but we helped them set that up with kind of the infrastructure to do that. And Mike Smith, who you every once in a while hear, you heard a lot of him during the Springer fire. He's the one who brings those maps up every day, and he comes here first, and he sits down with who's ever here. It's usually me, sometimes it's the mayor, sometimes it's the public works director, sometimes it's the fire chief, and he'll do about a 15-minute spiel, and then he takes them over there and he posts them, and he stays there for a while. So to tie him into this meeting, because they're still processing and they're still getting data it would be premature. It would be almost inappropriate to ask him to be here at 11:30 when they're still trying to develop those things. Any other questions? Then be safe. I'll see you tomorrow at 11:30 right here. Thank you.
I want free lunch. I brought my lunch today. I thought, you know what, I'm going to be right behind you so you can watch out. Fix some butter.
She's doing it because she doesn't want butter on TV.
Well, it's a good idea. He was the mayor of the assistant to the city, and also the assistant to the council. So, you know, he's one of us. And you like that stuff. We got friendly. So we got friendly.
Well, most of our rooms are upstairs because it's up in the basement.
Folks, we'll go ahead and get started in just a couple of minutes. If you're standing in the back, first of all, Doug, can you hear me okay? Larry, you got it? So if you'd like, there's room up here if you want to come sit down up front. You might be able to see the maps better. You might be more comfortable. So I'll give you a chance to come up here and sit down, and then we'll go ahead and get started in just a minute or so. Hi, Mike. Hello, Galen.